Okay,
All
so
right, here we are, back at Education 2.0 conference. We're here to discuss a small charter school network that has taken on the tremendous challenge of empowering at-risk students from underserved communities. It's a story of resilience, creativity, and dedication, and we can't wait to share it with you. To share with us instances of community empowerment with impactful efforts, we have our very special speakers, Dr. Tadios Belay, President and CEO of U.S. Africa Institute, and Dr. Timothy Andrew Smith, President and CEO of Learning Matters Educational Group. Let's welcome them with a round of applause.
thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you had a great lunch. And welcome to our Fireside chat. My name is Dr. Tadios Belay. I am the President and CEO of U.S. African Institute. We are a community of educators, students, and public servants who are committed to promote access to education for historically underserved and marginalized students, primarily African Americans, African immigrants like myself, and Latino students across the United States and also in Africa. My educational background and work experience spans over 14, 15 years now. Studied in a number of universities and colleges across 4 continents, including Asia, Middle East, Europe, and also Africa and the United States. And most recently, I studied at the University of Southern California, my doctorate on education and then policy. That's where I made Dr. Smith. So today, we are going to talk about a critical issue that lies at the heart of our education system, and that's supporting at-risk students. We believe that education is the great equalizer in our communities, but a lot of students, especially underserved students, historically marginalized students, are falling behind. And they're, are lacking a lot of resources and in so many ways. If you look at the completion rate for historically underserved students, it's the lowest in our nation. So that's why we're here today to talk about that, and also the success of Taylor Haider's Academy and Thrive Point Academy, and how these schools are addressing the unique challenge facing students at risk. And I have the pleasure of sitting here with Dr. Smith, a good friend of mine. Also, he's also my board member at the U.S. African Institute, and I also serve as board president for Taylor Haider's Academy in Victorville, California. And I hope through our conversation, we will be able to inspire a collective call to action and fostering understanding about the challenge facing at-risk students in our communities. And we'll be also sharing the success story of Taylor Academy and then Thrive Point Academy in our communities, especially for historically underserved communities. And again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Dr. Smith, would you please say something about yourself, introduce yourself to the audience, please?
Sure, thank you, Dr. Belay. First off, I'd like to thank each of you for this opportunity to be in this conference. It's been an amazing event. We've had a lot of inspirational leaders that have spoken already. We have Dr. Beverly Knox-Pipe, who was our keynote speaker yesterday, who had a really engaging session on rethinking education. Sean Callaghy gave us our Showstopper event yesterday, which was definitely inspiring. And I was fortunate to be on the panel yesterday talking about coming of age in the digital era, and we had many takeaways from that. So I'm humbled for this chance to speak, and hopefully I'll be able to give the confidence to deliver this message for you. I know there's a lot better speakers out here than myself, but I'm willing to take this opportunity and thankful for this chance to speak with you all.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. And I know Thrive Point Academy and Taylor High Desert Academy are doing amazing work in terms of addressing the unique challenge of our at-risk students in California, in Arizona, and now we are also in the process of opening a new school here in Nevada. And tell us about these schools and what are the missions for both schools? Yeah.
Sure. Well, first off, I would like to thank you for being the board president of Taylor High Desert Academy. You've been on our board for 4 years, which is great. And you and I met at the USC program. We were in the Executive Educational Leadership Program, which was a great opportunity for us to study educational systems in the Middle East and in Asia and in LA. And we learned a lot about some of the school systems, both in the post-secondary world and in the K-12 world, about some of the obstacles and challenges that they have in addition to the U.S. school system. And so it was a great learning experience for both of us, and I'm grateful to be on your board of the U.S. Africa Institute and appreciate everything you've done for Taylor High Desert Academy in Victorville. And you did a great commencement speech, by the way, and so thank you for that. But with regard to the mission of Thrive Point Academy, certainly it is to empower at-risk students to be successful and to go on to find their next big step, whether that's going to be military, career, whether that's going to be in community college, trade schools, or university. We want our students to be excited and looking forward to their next big step and being confident in their learning. So that's our mission for our young people that come to our school.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. I know you have spent most of your life, or almost in your life, in education, supporting historically underserved students and students included, right? So, but why did you start these schools?
Well, thank you for asking. Yes, so education's been something that's been in my family. My mother was a school teacher, my father was a professor, my sister is a school teacher as well, and so education was something we always valued. But I was never regularly a stellar student myself. I was kind of a middle-of-the-road student in high school. And my mother was a single mother teaching me and trying to help me to support me in my learning as best she could. But I was kind of one of those kids who got lost in the shuffle, middle of the road kind of kid. I took a few AP college classes, but dropped out of them. And, my high school experience wasn't exactly, I wasn't, one of the popular kids. And so I was happy to get done with high school, to be honest with you. But then when I went on to college afterwards, I was able to live and work in Korea for several years. And I was just really fascinated by the Korean folks and their passion for teachers and for learning English. And, they have a special place for educators there and respect them. And so that was something that made me think about getting into education possibly. So I went back to America and worked for a few years in the banking industry and went to school at Thunderbird Graduate School of International Management. And at that point I was thinking about international education, possibly interested in opening an English language school or something like that. And that was when the term charter schools came about. And so I was in Arizona and thought about, well, maybe we could start a school. And our first school was called International Studies Academy. And our students learned several different languages. We did Model United Nations. We did learn about being global citizens and all kinds of great things. And as we're developing this school, we were finding a lot of students were coming to us, were having struggles with being successful in school. We're not doing well in a traditional school environment. And so we kind of did a pivot and realized there's a need to develop a program that would specifically address the needs of at-risk students that would be able to learn in a blended environment, in a flexible environment that would help them to be successful. And that's how Thrive Point Academy was born.
Oh, great. So you just mentioned that our traditional public schools are not addressing, they are dysfunctional in so many ways, and they're not addressing the critical issues and challenges facing at-risk students, right? Yes. And there's so many challenges they are facing, right? So what are some of these challenges facing at-risk students?
Oh, that's a good question. Let's see, I don't know if our presentation, oh, there we are. Okay, so go back. All right, so there are quite a few internal and external challenges that at-risk youth are facing in society. I think we talked about this a little bit yesterday. Socioeconomic disadvantage, poverty is a real thing, especially since the pandemic. And so students are not going to think about learning or going to school in a situation like that. Limited educational opportunities. If a student doesn't see a future for themselves in a traditional school environment, then school is not going to be relevant to them. They're not going to want to attend, and they're going to drop out of school. Family dysfunction, modern society, the two parents sitting home together at dinner time, that doesn't happen very much anymore. A lot of families have one parent, maybe no parents, and some students are maybe even parenting kids themselves, or maybe there's all different types of things happening in families, and so that impacts their ability to stay in school. Gang involvement in crime, certainly that's an influence for someone that's not in school, and there's substance abuse, fentanyl, we know what the challenges are with that, and certainly we need to address those needs in substance abuse if that's happening. That's going to impact someone being successful at school. Mental health issues. Nowadays, special social emotional needs are there for young people, and we need to make sure that we're adequately addressing the needs of at-risk youth. Lack of positive role models. So certainly we all need that. A lot of young people don't have a positive role model in their lives. And limited job opportunities. Today in today's economy, it's a challenge for a lot of us, whether we're youth or adults, finding a job or finding a career path that will work. So those are some of the challenges.
Okay, so myself being a former refugee or immigrant, coming to the United States, it was very challenging for me, to send our family, kids or students, to public schools, because a lot of these public, traditional public schools are not really addressing their challenges, and there are a lot of barriers, including in the language.
Yeah.
So, and in fact. One of my close family member, who came to the United States when he was, 11 years old, he was struggling, at the public schools, right? So then we sent him to, small charter schools, and then a lot of these, public, traditional public schools are not really addressing the challenge of, the students. And why do you think, their needs are not, why their needs are not, met by the traditional public schools?
Yeah, I think that public schools are certainly needing to serve a lot of needs, and certainly they do great for the most part. A lot of students are successful in public schools, but there's a lot of kids who fall through the cracks. And so here's some of the reasons: limited resources. Public schools don't have the specialized programs or the support staff for this population of students. Overcrowded classrooms. We certainly know. If you've got 3,000 students in a school environment, you're going to try to address the needs of the students the most that you can. They're lacking that individualized attention, lack of training. A lot of at-risk students need specialized programs and specialized training for the teachers, not necessarily just a traditional method. External factors, we had talked about those before. Of course, those are impacting public schools. Limited community resources, after-school programs, mental health programs, mentoring for at-risk youth. Those are certainly needs. High-stakes testing, there's certainly an emphasis for that. But if you're a student that's behind in credits, up to 2 or 3 years behind in credits, thinking about a high-stakes test is not relevant to you. You want to be able to catch up yourself and see what you can do, and so having that high-stakes test is not going to be of value to you. Cultural and linguistic diversity. Certainly English language learners, their needs are not necessarily being met in comprehensive schools, and we've got inclusive practices. There needs to be far more inclusive practices happening, and there's cultural barriers as well. So these are some of the impacts, the barriers that public schools face.
So I know your school is doing a lot of work in terms of addressing this challenge, right? So, but what exactly your school is doing to help them address or overcome these barriers?
Yeah, some of these barriers are not insurmountable, and I think that it's possible. Research has shown that there are things that can be done. One of the strategies identified is creating a caring and sustained relationship. So today's youth in large schools are they're losing there's a connection, So at Thrive Point, we have a mastery-based learning program and student success coaches that connect with these students, and they're able to be that mentor that they need. They're going to be able to create that relationship, that one-on-one that these students need, so that they can see that they matter, that they are there for them and want to help them to be successful in their goals. So that's one.
So is that the only barrier that you're trying to help them overcome, or are there any additional barriers that your school is trying to address or help them overcome this challenge? And I know some of the students it seems like they're lost because they don't have the support. So what is your school, the Thrive Point Academy, is doing?
Yeah. Okay. So an additional barrier that can be overcome is looking at setting and reaching attainable goals. A lot of times this, university or bust system for everyone is if you're not going to university, you're a failure. I don't think that's fair. I think let's look at each student. What is it that they'd like to accomplish? What are our goals? What's a reasonable goal for them to set? Where do they see themselves? Make that visualization. Where do you see yourself in the future? And work from that and start putting sub-goals into making that larger long-term goal for them. So setting these goals, let the students take ownership of these goals, and working with their student success coach to accomplish them is certainly a great strategy to employ.
Okay, great. So a lot of students, students, they're dropping out, right? They're, losing hope, and also they don't really see any future for themselves. So what are you trying to do to help them, overcome this, this particular, challenge?
Yeah, that's a good question. Certainly it's one thing to set a goal, but it's another thing to look at a realistic and hopeful pathway. A lot of times students will say, well, I don't even know what I'm going to do tomorrow, let alone what I'm going to do when I'm finished with school. But helping them identify that picture starts to give them that hope. And if you take a pathway, for example, let's say they want to do culinary, then let's look at that. What excites you about that? You start making food at home, or you maybe go to a culinary school, look at some of those options for them, but the coach is there to help that student visualize that hopeful pathway so that they can be more engaged and be excited about coming to school and seeing themselves in the future.
Okay, so and then it seems like a lot of students or risk students they feel bored sitting in the classroom just and also just listening to the lectures, right? But how do you keep them engaged not only in the classroom or on campus, but also with the community? How are you doing that in terms of making sure that they're actively engaged both on campus and off campus with the local communities?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. And wait, we went back to. Okay, so certainly we want our students to be engaged in school, but we also want them to be engaged in the larger community. And forming those community partnerships and those relationships are what gets students excited about their future and about taking a sense of ownership. When the student comes to Thrive Point, they put on a uniform, they look at that mission, they see themselves as part of the Thrive Point team. When they're going out to volunteer in the community, whether they're doing an internship or they're doing an apprenticeship or they're connecting with Boys and Girls Club or the YMCA or something like that, they feel a part of something and they have that sense of purpose. They know that they are important to the school. We expect them to be there. We want them to be successful. And so that sense of belonging certainly is infused there.
Oh, great. So I know you did your doctoral research on this particular subject, right? So can you tell us more about your research and the findings?
Thank you about that. Yeah. So I was fortunate enough to be able to study Thrive Point Academy. When we first embarked on our dissertation work, we were talking about studying other schools or organizations, and USC had this large charter network. I was going to possibly study them, but then there was a long wait list for that. And I said, well, I'd like to be able to study my own students. And they said, well, if they're 18 or older, you can do that study. And so fortunately, that's our population that we're the most passionate about, is overage undercredited students, our 5th and 6th year seniors. And so we were able to do a survey of over 115 of our 5th and 6th year seniors that are 18 and older. And then we did individual interviews with 20 of those students. And so it was really a great study, and we gained a lot from it. So thank you.
Okay, so, and then also, some schools are, too large, right? And then, students can get lost, like, in the shuffle. And did you find any, the impact of any, like, smaller school, to address the challenge of, at-risk students, and having, like, a smaller size of, schools in terms of, size?
Yes, that was definitely one of the findings. We found that a smaller learning environment, 94% of our students that were surveyed agreed that a smaller learning environment played a large part in their ability to make that connection with their teachers and staff, not just in a formal setting as their teacher, but informally as a mentor, as a coach, as someone who they believed in all parts of their lives. And so certainly that was validated. And at any of our locations, we cap our enrollment at 200 to 300 students, because we want to make sure that our teachers and coaches have that one-on-one connection with each student that comes through our door.
Okay, that's great. So I know you have created a personalized learning environment at Tailwind Academy, as well as Tri Point Academy. Did your research findings support that claim?
Yes, and so I think that personalization was definitely an important aspect, and 98%, that was the most validated of any of our points, was that 98% of the students felt that the learning they were having was very personalized to them, that they were not in a rigid, everybody gets the same thing kind of a situation. That each student had their own personalized plan, and they felt that the teachers and staff were working with them to make sure that they would be successful. One of our students that we interviewed, his name was David. He was into auto mechanics, and he loved doing auto mechanics work, and he wanted to go into mechanics after he finished. And so he was lamenting the fact that he didn't have that personalized connection with his local school, but was very happy to be able to have that at Thrive Point. And he loved talking to his principal and teachers about their cars, and he loved that Mr. Fox had this Mustang, and he thought it was a really great Mustang car. And so he was definitely a car aficionado, but loved that connection with his teachers talking about auto mechanics.
Wow, that's a great news. And so would it be fair to say that Thrive Point Academy is helping at-risk students build relationship with their teachers, with their classmates and students, and also with the larger community, and that has have any impacts on their learning experience?
Yes, so we did find that. In fact, a lot of students agreed that they had a better understanding of the learning process after having been at Thrive Point, and developing that relationship with their teachers definitely helped them. And so 95% of the students, or 94% of them agreed that they had a better understanding of the learning process after graduating from high school. In fact, Moana said that their teacher was very engaging in the classroom, and she was a really good math student. And so he encouraged her to work with some of the other students in math. And another student, Sharon, was good at English, and she liked helping the other students with English, and the other students would help with math, so that they had a lot of cooperative learning going on. And so that sharing was certainly the best way for them to learn and help them have a better understanding of the learning process once they finished high school.
So then how do you make them engaged in the learning process? So this is like, high success rate, 94%. That's, high success rate.
Yeah.
And how do you engage them in terms of understanding their learning process?
Yeah, right. Okay. So what we found also is that 93% of their students were able to see value in completing their education, and 90% of them felt like they had a sense of belonging to the school. And one of our students, Joshua, was a really good example of that. There was a health class that he had taken, and when he took it in class, it was the teacher lecturing to him. And so he was excited, or he thought it was kind of weird, to quote him, that we allowed him to choose how he would learn about health. And so he gave us the example that he could watch a YouTube video on health, he could write a research paper on health, he could do a group project with other students on health, and then he could go and take a mastery-based assessment to determine whether he learned something about health. And all of this was done without a teacher lecture. And he also commented that, when he was at his previous school, he considered himself to be lazy, or they had told him he was lazy, but when he goes to Thrive Point, he asks his teachers to check in on him because he wants to continue to stay motivated, and he loves the fact that he's more engaged in his learning, and that helps him to want to do better for his future. So was happy to hear all that from Joshua.
So sounds like the Thrive Point is very much successful in engaging them with the learning process overall, and also their motivation. So what does your school do when the students feel so far behind? In terms of their engagement with the school, with the students, or with their teachers. So how do you keep them motivated?
Yeah, that's a very good question, because a lot of times our students are coming to us 2 or 3 grade levels behind and don't feel like they can be successful. But what we've found is that the learning environment helps them to persist in school and stay motivated. In fact, 90% of the students felt like it was that learning environment that made it attainable for them to be able to be successful. One of our students, Garwin, he felt like the choice that he has to be able to do online learning and to accelerate his learning was a motivating factor for him, because he wanted to finish early. He wanted to work at SpaceX. Elon Musk was a mentor for him. He was very motivated to want to do that. And so being able to have that flexibility was helpful for him. We also had Sylvia, who was motivated by her teacher, Mr. Navarro. She was interested in being a music producer, and he encouraged her to continue to pursue that. And so this thought of hers of, becoming a music producer motivated her to continue to stay on task with her learning and to stay engaged and to be able to catch up and graduate on time.
So let's talk about their social and emotional needs. So how do you support them in terms of addressing their emotional and social needs?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a concern for a lot of our students. In fact, one of our questions was 15-year seniors, they have to overcome specific challenges to persist in school. They can't just automatically come to the school and be successful. We had a student, Violet, who was 19, and she had serious issues with depression and anxiety, and she would skip school for months at a time because she just couldn't handle being in school all day. But so for her, having a part-time job was helpful. And so we were able to allow her to have the time to work on her part-time job. And then when she would come to school, if it was in the afternoon, she would be fresh and ready. And when she was at school, she didn't have to think about her personal or family issues that were causing this depression. And when she came to school for a half day's worth of work, she was able to get it done and stay on track. So it was really a help for her to be able to be successful.
Great. And so I think now let's talk about the model. I know your school is it's different in a lot of ways. So it's blended. It's hybrid. Online, and also there is also an in-person support system for the students. And what are the components of this model? And also you are also trying to expand the school to other states. I know you are in the process of opening a new school here in Nevada. And then you face a lot of challenges and also, of course, opportunities. And can you tell us something about that?
Sure. Yeah. Well, so first to address the components of the model. Let's see. It's our PowerPoint over. I guess I finished it. All right. So anyway, oh, wait,
I
oh,
think
here we
it's
have
coming,
it,
yeah.
okay. Oh, yeah, so we've identified 7 key components that we feel are unique to the Thrive Point educational model. First of all, being flexibility. It doesn't have that rigid structure. Students can choose to be online or blended. A smaller learning environment, capping out at 200 to 300 students at a campus. The student success coaches being there as a mentor to each of our students, follow them through their whole journey, making sure their social emotional needs are met. Family and community engagement is critical. A lot of times, some of these students, if they don't have a family, we are their family. Thrive Point is their family. And the larger community is their family, and they feel that engagement. Community partnerships with Boys and Girls Club, YMCA, apprenticeships, internships, other things like that. Personalized learning, each student has a personalized success plan that works for them, but it's all done in a mastery-based learning environment. There is no set time where they're expected. It's up to them to determine if they want to catch up, if they want to accelerate. It's all up to them to be able to do that. But to address your question about Nevada, we are excited about opening a new charter school in the state of Nevada, and we've submitted an application here. One of the challenges, or one of the exciting pieces of Nevada's charter legislation is they've identified an academic needs assessment. So there are certain charters that are open in the state already, but they would like to see new charter schools being opening in communities of need. And so we've identified the zip code of 89107 as an area of low-performing schools in an underserved community, and we'd like to open a resource center there. And so we're excited about that. We feel hopeful about our chances for approval, but we're the first alternative charter school to be applying directly as an alternative school. A lot of times these charters will come in wanting to be high-performing, take the best of the best kids and all of that, but our program is such that we want to work within that alternative framework. But what we found out, each state has a different alternative framework. They have a different set of criteria to determine what is an alternative school or what is an at-risk population. And in order for us to open new programs in new communities, we have to be able to work within that community to determine what their framework looks like and what their criteria is for how they monitor the effectiveness of our school. So
Thank you, Dr. Smith. I think we have like almost 9 minutes now. So let's open up for any questions and comments. Please come forward to the microphone if you have any questions or comments, or even potential collaboration with Thrive Point Academy or Taylor Hydrogen Academy in Victorville, California.
yes, we're open to any questions any of you have. We're thankful for this opportunity. If anyone has any specific questions you'd like to ask, or we'll try to do our best to answer.
Yes,
Yep,
please.
Go ahead.
Thank you for the important work that you are doing.
Thank you.
I have a big investment and passion in social emotional learning, trauma-informed practices, restorative practices, and you touched on that in your presentation. I just was curious whether you think, whether in your professional opinion, this is something that should be implemented in policy in some way, in educational policy, so that it's a mandated part of education.
Well, I would certainly agree that there should be some way that it is mandated. I mean, social emotional is certainly something that needs to be a part of every school. But the challenge is anytime you mandate anything, then you take away that choice and that sense of ownership that a group has. And so certainly we feel it's critical, and I'm glad that you feel the same way, that it needs to be addressed at every school setting. But I would support the idea, and I know Tadios and his foundation and the work he's doing would definitely agree with that. And so, yeah, we support the idea of a mandate, but whenever you mandate something, it may not come out to the result that you'd like, but certainly it's important, and I commend you for your desires and everything that you're doing in your field. I look forward to your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
Okay, yay.
Can you say a little bit more about what partnership looks like?
Say that again?
Can you say a little bit more about what partnership looks
Partnerships.
like?
Yes. Okay, yeah, exactly. So one of the things we're excited about with the state of Nevada is they wanted to know, what are the partnerships you're working on? And so we have worked really diligently to put together a bunch of partnerships and MOUs and things like that. And so one of the things that we've done is the College of Southern Nevada has an apprenticeship program for 16 different trade unions. And so each of those trade unions has a curriculum for 18-year-olds. And so what we're doing is setting up a pre-apprenticeship program for 16 to 18-year-olds so that they can work in each of those different 16 trades in preparation for when they're 18. And so then they can jump directly into that trade organization. And so we want to partner with each one of those trades, have them come to the school, set these kids up with their pre-apprenticeships so that when they're 18, they're ready to go. They're going to have employable skills and work maybe while they're still going to school, but understand that at College of Southern Nevada, they can pursue that and move further along in their specific trade and continue to earn more money as they move along. But certainly Boys and Girls Club, YMCA, a lot of our students have the opportunity to be mentors to other young people. Like, Boys and Girls Club tends to have a lot of after-school programs. Our high school age students can be there as mentors, sports program coaches or other things like that, or volunteer in other ways. Service learning is another thing that they can do. I mean, it's not for us to decide. It's up for that student to say, hey, here's your opportunities to form a partnership. What would you like to do? What trade are you interested in? What do you see yourself in your future? Do you want to do healthcare? Maybe the health district is where you want to go. We want to help them decide what it's going to be. But certainly it's an unlimited number of possibilities and an unlimited number of partnerships, and we're excited about having the community be engaged at the school.
Okay, so I think we have one more question.
Yes, sir.
So I thought it was really interesting to hear about the way you were just expressing alternative programs, learning programs, and as someone myself who had gone through that in high school, I can say that it wasn't a performance issue for me. It was more of an engagement issue. I found myself getting very bored, not wanting to engage in a lot of the material, and then alternative programs kind of opened the door for me to be able to do that. So something that comes to mind when we're talking through this, a lot of the times we're focused primarily on those in like that 9th to 12th grade. Sometimes we touch middle school. Have you had a good amount of exposure or experience with dealing with that in that 1st through 5th range? Because a lot of times these things that we're addressing them on the tail end of the education journey, and there's some things that I think need to start happening earlier in the journey in order for them to get there.
Right, no, that's a very valid question, and unfortunately that's one of the challenges is like for us to open a school in Nevada, we have to take them a year's behind, or else they don't fit the criteria. We have to have 75% of our students need to be 16 years of age and at least 1 year's worth of credits behind, which is a shame, unfortunately. But yeah, so fortunately for us in the High Desert Academy in Victorville, we're able to have middle school students, and we have quite a few middle school students that are coming to us. And there is a lot to be said about in middle school age, they tend to have that, okay, are they going to be behind even before they get to high school? And so certainly we're working on some of that in Victorville, but I agree with you that we need to address those needs at a younger age and catch them ahead of time so that they don't become so far behind and not have this reactive approach. And so I think part of that's policy, but certainly as educators, we need to make sure we're working with each of those students proactively. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. Do we have
Well, so I think with that, thank you so much, Dr. Smith, for sharing your work, and it's a very important work, making sure that we're addressing the critical challenges facing students, because it's also in our communities, in the African immigrant communities, African Americans, and Latino communities, we have a lot of students failing behind because of lack of support, and we're appreciating the work that you are doing, and also Education 2.0 for offering this opportunity for us to share the work you're doing, and then also our audience for engaging with us with your questions and comments. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you, team. Thank you. Good job.